You think you know 60s TV, but the truth is, most of it treated women as background characters. We're proving that the women of Star Trek, the original series, weren't just background, they were trailblazers. They challenged Kirk, they intrigued Spock, and they were the first officers, scientists, and explorers on TV. Watch now as we explore their full careers, their legacies, and where they stand today. Majel Barrett. Majel Barrett wasn't just an actress on Star Trek. She was, in many ways, its heartbeat. Born on February 23, 1932, in Cleveland, Ohio, Majel Barrett began her career in television during the 1950s. When she appeared in the unaired pilot The Cage, she took on the role of Number One, the first officer of the Enterprise. Calm, intelligent, and commanding, her presence was unprecedented. In 1964, the idea of a woman in such authority unsettled NBC executives, who insisted Roddenberry drop the character. But Majel wasn't gone for long. She returned in the main series as Nurse Christine Chapel, the compassionate medical officer whose quiet devotion to Spock added a layer of humanity to the cold Vulcan. Beyond Chapel, Majel's connection to Star Trek only deepened. She married Gene Roddenberry, becoming affectionately known as the First Lady of Star Trek, and her contributions expanded well past acting. For decades, she was the voice of the computer in Star Trek series and films, her calm tone becoming one of the most recognizable sounds in science fiction. In The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, she played Lwaxana Troi, mother to Deanna, a flamboyant and eccentric woman who slowly revealed a heart filled with depth and pain. Through Lwaxana, Majel showed she could balance comedy with moments of profound humanity. Even beyond the screen, she was an anchor to the fan community. At conventions, she shared Gene's vision, nurtured the fandom, and reminded fans of their role in keeping Star Trek alive. When Majel passed away in 2008 at the age of 76, fans mourned deeply, but her voice continues to echo across the galaxy every time a Starship computer responds. In 2025, her legacy is still alive in every corner of the Trek universe. Lee Meriwether. In the episode That Which Survives, Lee Meriwether appeared as Lucira, a guardian hologram who was both alluring and deadly. Her presence was haunting, a beautiful figure capable of destruction with just a touch. Born May 27, 1935 in Los Angeles, Meriwether first gained the nation's attention when she was crowned Miss America in 1955. But she didn't stop at pageantry. She transitioned into acting, carving out a career that spanned decades. She is fondly remembered for her turn as Catwoman in the 1966 Batman film, stepping into a role originally played by Julie Newmar. With grace and sly charm, she brought a unique energy to the feline villainess. Her longest-running television success came with Barnaby Jones, where she played Betty Jones, the stepdaughter and partner of Buddy Ebsen's detective character. The role earned her Emmy and Golden Globe nominations, cementing her place in American television. As of 2025, Lee Meriwether is 89 years old, having enjoyed one of the most varied and lasting careers of any guest actress on Star Trek. She remains a fan favorite at conventions and retrospectives. Joanne Linville. In the Enterprise incident, Joanne Linville brought to life the Romulan commander, one of the most powerful women ever seen on television at the time. Her portrayal was dignified, intelligent, and commanding, challenging Kirk and Spock in ways that audiences didn't expect. Born January 15, 1928 in Bakersfield, California, Linville trained at the Stella Adler studio and worked extensively in television throughout the 1950s and 60s. Her credits included The Twilight Zone, Bonanza, and Gunsmoke. But her Romulan commander role was groundbreaking. Until then, female military leaders on television were almost unheard of. Linville's ability to play strength with subtlety, showing authority while also displaying vulnerability, left a lasting mark. Beyond Star Trek, Linville worked in Dynasty, LA Law, and Columbo. She also co-founded the Stella Adler Academy in Los Angeles, training countless young actors. Joanne Linville passed away in 2021 at the age of 93, leaving behind not only a performance that reshaped what women could do in science fiction, but also a legacy of teaching and mentorship that influenced generations of actors. Grace Lee Whitney. Grace Lee Whitney's role as Yeoman Janice Rand was short-lived on Star Trek, but unforgettable. As Captain Kirk's trusted aide, she brought efficiency, warmth, and a hint of quiet affection to the bridge during the first season. Born April 1, 1930, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Whitney began as a singer and dancer before moving into film and television. She appeared in Some Like It Hot alongside Marilyn Monroe and had guest spots on Batman, Bewitched, and The Outer Limits. Her departure from Star Trek after only a handful of episodes was abrupt, but her connection to the series continued. She reprised Janice Rand in Star Trek, the motion picture, The Voyage Home, The Undiscovered Country, and even in episodes of Voyager. Whitney's life wasn't without struggle. She faced addiction and personal challenges, but later became a strong advocate for recovery and a voice of encouragement for others battling the same issues. At conventions, she openly shared her story, inspiring fans not just as a Trek actress but as a survivor. Grace Lee Whitney passed away in 2015 at the age of 85. But for many, she remains the beating heart of early Star Trek, representing loyalty, strength, and hope. Diana Muldaur. Diana Muldaur made not one but two guest appearances on Star Trek, the original series. In Return to Tomorrow, she played Dr. Ann Mulhall, whose body was temporarily possessed by an alien intelligence. In Is There in Truth No Beauty, she portrayed Dr. Miranda Jones, a blind telepath whose complexity and inner strength made her unforgettable. Born August 19, 1938, in Brooklyn, New York, Muldaur's career blossomed in the 1960s and 70s. She appeared in Perry Mason, Hawaii Five-0, and the FBI before landing major roles in McCloud and later L.A. Law, where she played Rosalind Shays, a role that earned her Emmy nominations and made her one of TV's most memorable lawyers. She later returned to Star Trek in The Next Generation as Dr. Catherine Pulaski, a role that stirred debate among fans for her no-nonsense approach and her sometimes prickly relationship with Data. As of 2025, Diana Muldaur is 86 years old, remembered for her versatility and her rare ability to play characters who balanced intellect, strength, and emotional nuance. Mariette Hartley. In All Our Yesterdays, Mariette Hartley played Zarabeth, a tragic figure trapped in a prehistoric ice age with whom Spock briefly falls in love. Their fleeting romance showed audiences a vulnerable side of Spock rarely seen before. Born June 21, 1940 in Weston, Connecticut, Hartley began her career with stage roles and early television work. Her career soared in the 1970s with appearances in The Incredible Hulk, Peyton Place, and dozens of guest spots across primetime television. She won an Emmy for her work opposite James Garner in The Rockford Files and became widely known for her Polaroid commercials with Garner, where their on-screen chemistry was so believable that audiences assumed they were married. Beyond acting, Hartley became a vocal advocate for mental health awareness, drawing on her own family struggles. As of 2025, she is 84 years old, a respected actress and advocate whose legacy spans far beyond her unforgettable day in the cold with Mr. Spock. Angelique Pettyjohn. Angelique Pettyjohn's story is as wild as the costumes she wore on Star Trek. Fans remember her as Shauna, the silver-haired drill thrall in The Gamesters of Triskelion. With metallic bikini armor and a commanding presence, she was both futuristic warrior and space-age fantasy. What most fans didn't know at the time is that Pettyjohn's life after Trek took unexpected turns. She worked as a showgirl in Las Vegas, gracing stages with elaborate dance numbers. Later, she moved into the world of burlesque and even adult entertainment, navigating an industry that was far less forgiving of women than it is today. Through it all, she embraced her Trek fandom, appearing at conventions where fans adored her as one of the unforgettable beauties of the original series. Sadly, her life was cut short in 1992 when she passed away from cancer at only 48. Today, Shauna remains an enduring image of 1960s sci-fi camp, and Pettyjohn is remembered as someone who leaned into her legacy with joy, even as life presented her with challenges. Susan Oliver. For many viewers, Susan Oliver's green-painted skin in The Cage made her an icon of sci-fi history. As Vina, the woman trapped by the Telosians, she became the very first woman seen in the Star Trek universe. But Oliver's career extended far beyond that moment. She was one of the busiest television actresses of the 1960s and 70s, appearing in over 100 shows, from Wagon Train to The Twilight Zone. Yet Oliver's true pioneering spirit came outside of Hollywood. She was an accomplished pilot, one of the few women of her era to fly solo across the Atlantic in a small plane. She even trained as an astronaut in the early days of NASA, showing the same boldness as the characters she played. Oliver battled cancer for years, passing in 1990 at just 58. While her career never made her a household name, her courage and independence embodied the progressive spirit Star Trek championed. Today, she's celebrated not just as the Green Girl, but as a trailblazer who refused to let Hollywood define her limits. Yvonne Craig. Yvonne Craig is best remembered by pop culture fans as Batgirl on the 1960s Batman series, but Trekkies know her as the green-skinned Orion slave girl, Marta in Whom Gods Destroy. With her dance, her wild energy, and her sudden violent turn against Captain Kirk, she made the role unforgettable. Craig's career spanned ballet, film, and television. She often spoke about how proud she was to play Batgirl, a character who inspired girls to think of themselves as capable crime fighters. Her work in Star Trek, meanwhile, allowed her to show a darker, edgier side of performance. In later life, Craig was active in philanthropy and voice work, including roles in animation. She passed away in 2015, but her dual legacy as Batgirl and Marta remains etched into pop culture. She embodied the idea that women in science fiction could be both alluring and powerful, villains and heroes, sometimes all in the same role. Antoinette Bauer. Antoinette Bauer appeared in Cat's Paw, the Halloween-themed episode of Star Trek, as Sylvia, the mysterious alien sorceress. With her commanding presence and gothic flair, she gave the show one of its most theatrical villains. Bauer's career stretched across decades, including guest roles in Mission Impossible, Perry Mason, and Columbo. Later, she appeared in films such as Prom Night, 1980, showing her range well into the horror boom of the late 20th century. By the 1990s, Bauer retired quietly from acting, leaving behind a portfolio of work that exemplified the era's best television guest stars. Fans still revisit her Star Trek role every Halloween, keeping her spooky and stylish Sylvia alive in fandom. Nancy Kovac. Nancy Kovac, who played Nona in A Private Little War, brought a sense of both sensuality and menace to the screen. Nona was a medicine woman whose ambitions and manipulations drove much of the episode's drama. Kovac's career outside Trek was impressive. She appeared in Bewitched as the mischievous witch Darren's ex-girlfriend, starred in films like Jason and the Argonauts, and became a familiar face in the 1960s and 1970s television. After marrying famed conductor Zubin Mehta, she gradually stepped back from Hollywood, choosing a quieter life connected to the world of classical music. Today, Kovac's role on Trek is remembered as one of the show's most complex guest characters, a woman who wasn't merely decoration but a driving force in the story. Sherry Jackson. As Andrea, the android in What Are Little Girls Made Of, Sherry Jackson played one of the most memorable roles in Star Trek. Dressed in a striking metallic costume, she brought both innocence and danger to her character, showing the allure and the threat of artificial intelligence decades before it became a mainstream topic. Jackson's acting career was long and varied. She was a child star on Make Room for Daddy, later transitioning into grown-up roles across television and film. She never quite became a leading lady in movies, but her television work made her a household name. Even today, fans remember Andrea as one of the standout androids of classic science fiction. Jackson herself embraced the fandom, making appearances and giving interviews where she spoke warmly of her Trek legacy. Julie Newmar. Julie Newmar was already a cultural icon by the time she appeared on Star Trek as Eileen in Friday's Child. With her statuesque figure and commanding presence, she brought gravitas to the role of a woman caught between tradition and survival. Of course, Newmar is best remembered as Catwoman on Batman, where she defined feline seduction for a generation, but her Trek role gave her a chance to show a different side: maternal strength, vulnerability, and courage. In later life, Newmar became a businesswoman, writer, and advocate. She remains beloved in fandoms across genres. In 2025, she stands as one of the last surviving stars of that golden television era, still elegant, still witty, and still admired by fans who grew up watching her. Barbara Anderson. Barbara Anderson appeared in The Conscience of the King as Lenore Caridian, the tragic daughter of a mass murderer hiding as a Shakespearean actor. Her performance was chilling, balancing innocence with madness, and giving the series one of its most theatrical episodes. Anderson went on to win an Emmy Award for her role in Ironside, where she played a detective alongside Raymond Burr. Later, she left acting to focus on family life, stepping away from the spotlight. Her Star Trek role, though brief, remains an example of how the series could use Shakespearean drama to tackle morality, guilt, and legacy. Fans continue to rediscover her chilling performance. Louise Sorel. Louise Sorel brought elegance and poise to her role as Reyna in Requiem for Methuselah. As an android who learns to love, she broke Kirk's heart and gave the episode one of its most tragic conclusions. Sorel's career blossomed in daytime television, where she became a soap opera legend with long-running roles on Days of Our Lives and Santa Barbara. Her sharp wit and commanding presence made her a fan favorite. In Star Trek, she delivered one of the most human performances of the series. Ironic, since she played a character who wasn't human at all. Reyna's story still resonates as a meditation on love, mortality, and what it means to be alive. Sheila Bromley, a veteran actress of film and television, appeared in Bread and Circuses as Septima, one of the women enslaved in a Roman-style society. By the time she appeared on Star Trek, Bromley had already built a long career in westerns, often playing strong-willed women. Though her Trek role was small, it symbolized something important: the way Star Trek folded veteran Hollywood talent into its futuristic allegories. Bromley retired not long after, closing a career that spanned from the 1930s to the 1960s. Her presence on Trek served as a bridge between old Hollywood and the new television age, showing the series' ability to mix veteran gravitas with youthful energy. Sharon Acker appeared in The Mark of Gideon as Odona, the woman who falls in love with Captain Kirk while struggling with her planet's overpopulation crisis. Her role brought heart and humanity to a story that was deeply allegorical for the 1960s. Acker went on to a successful television career, with roles in Perry Mason, The Love Boat, and even voice acting in animated series. She was a Canadian actress who helped pave the way for many others to break into Hollywood. Her Trek performance remains a fan favorite, full of warmth and idealism. In Odona, Acker created a character who represented hope for change, even in the face of seemingly impossible problems. The 1960s were an age of social transformation. The civil rights movement, the women's liberation movement, and the space race were shaping history. Against that backdrop, Gene Roddenberry's vision of the 23rd century was revolutionary. It showed audiences a future where humanity worked together across race, gender, and culture. For women, it meant something even more daring: a seat on the bridge of the Enterprise. But what became of the actresses who brought these unforgettable characters to life? Decades later, many of them carried the influence of their Star Trek roles into other areas of Hollywood, into activism, and into fandom itself. Some enjoyed long careers, some stepped away from the spotlight, and others live on through the stories they told. When we look back at these women of Star Trek, the original series, what we see is more than a list of guest stars. We see pioneers, icons, and artists who shaped not just one television show, but an entire era of culture. In the 1960s, at a time when women's roles on television were often limited, Star Trek gave audiences female characters who were leaders, villains, lovers, rebels, and thinkers. Sometimes they were trapped by stereotypes of the era, but often they transcended them, pointing toward a future where women could be anything: starship captains, alien queens, androids, scientists, or revolutionaries. Their careers after Trek tell a story of resilience. Some went on to great fame. Others struggled with typecasting. Some left Hollywood behind entirely. But all of them became part of something bigger than themselves. A show that continues to inspire in 2025, nearly 60 years after it first aired. The women of Star Trek proved that the final frontier wasn't just about space. It was about possibility. And through their performances, their courage, and their legacy, they remain stars in a galaxy that will never fade.